Okay, I'm going to try to do a video here on the mods that I did on my Unlimited F10. I've got my Hobie Sport in the background there, but I'm going to start from the back. The first thing I did was I added the rudder. This is something I got off of line, and it's supposed to mount on the top here, but there was no way to mount on the top, so I bought the little bracket here, plate on the front, plate on the back. I got that from Unlimited, I believe, and then I just mounted the rudder right to that bracket, but I wanted it to be spring loaded. This was not spring loaded, so if it hits something, the rudder was just going to fly up. So what I did is I put this, I don't know what you call this, I got this at Ace Hardware store, runs right through. I put two springs that run down, if you can see it, to the bottom. It gets hooked on right here, and now it's spring loaded. You can see the springs stretching, and so in the water, if it hits something, it just goes up and goes right back down again. I wasn't sure if it was going to be strong enough for the current, but yeah, it's plenty strong. The tension I had, one spring was not strong enough, so I put two in there. That's the first thing I did, and then when you're stowing this thing, I didn't want the rudder to be down in that position, so what I did is I screwed a hole in here and put a bungee cord onto here, and then this bungee cord wraps or connects right to the rudder, and I'll show you that in a second. Okay, and there's the rudder held up with the bungee cord for when you're loading it up. That comes off, got the hook in the hole right there. Okay, the next thing I did was add the crate in the back, and I put these bungee cords on here. Got these also at the hardware store. Got the little ball going through these. You can buy these just like this. And I just shortened up the cord, the bungee cord on each one, so you got four of them. And I've got the little eye hooks, four of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got four bungee cords. And that crate sits right here, and then it gets bungeed in. I'll show you that too. Okay, here's the crate. I set it in there, and I'll just put that last bungee cord. All you're doing is taking the bungee cord and setting it up on here. You do that with all four bungee cords, and that crate isn't going anywhere. For night fishing, I also put this light in here, and that slides right into that hole. This is stuff I can get at Menards also. This is PEX, I think, tubing. And what I did was I bought a light at the store. This PEX tubing comes in red, and then I bought this little PVC plumbing part, and I cut off this end. I just screwed it onto the bottom. Okay, and the light just turns on with this button. And it's pretty darn bright, and that just slides right into here. And I have my front or my back white light for fishing at night. The net I have is, I like this net because I can reach around and grab this. Of course, the seat turns if I want to, but I don't have to turn to grab the net. What's nice about this net is it stays nice and compacted, and when you want to unfold it, you just flip it and it's unfolded. It just saves a lot of room, and that goes right back here. I also put an anchor on here. I attach this to the crate with some bolts through the crate. I added this line here instead of the clothesline that was in there, and on the end you've got this carabiner, and that carabiner gets attached to, this is my weight. It's a 7-pound rubber-coated dumbbell. I've got a D-ring strapped on there with some pretty big, heavy-duty zip ties because I don't want that weight to be always on my crate when I'm carrying that crate around. I want to have that separately. Yeah, let's see, that goes on like that. And this sits back here. Move this. When I don't need it drops down. And then I have this tie down here, which came with the kayak. And I use that one when I'm in a strong current because it ties down a lot better, although it just takes a little bit longer to get it wrapped around this one because it's down there inside the kayak along the side. but I also attach this one here. When I'm in calm water, whether it's a calm water in the river or a lake, it's easier just to wrap this around. Wrap the cord around here, and of course drop the anchor down. And of course it's so nice to not have the cord when you're bringing the anchor up. This clothesline automatically just goes right back in again. And you'll probably see as I'm showing you these modifications that I tried keeping the theme of orange. So I bought these orange, I bought the cups are orange. The pack in the back I added to it. I'll put all these links down below where I got these if you're interested. So the pack is orange, which this is really nice. It fits my worms to keep them cool. Any other stuff I want, clothes, food, etc. Then the next thing I did was, you've got all this space underneath the seat. I didn't like just shoving tackle boxes in there because they'd slide up and down when I'm moving. I had to figure out a way to have something in there that wasn't going to slide all around. And so what I did is I went and got this container here, which is one of those tool containers that have all the little bins in there, and it had a cover in it. Well, this happened to just, I found one at, I think it was Lowe's. It didn't quite fit in there. It was a little smaller, but what it had was, it had just a 1/4 inch lip on each side. So what I did is I did some measuring. I went and got these aluminum pieces. I don't know what's, this is probably not even a 1/16 of an inch thick. Whatever this is, and about this wide. And you can see I screwed them right into the bottom of the seat. And of course you got to measure properly to make sure it's, you know, perfectly the same width that you need, because now with both those on each side, I can take the camera here, I screwed this one onto here, and it runs all the way the length of underneath the seat, and then the same with this one, runs all the way underneath the length of the seat. Now I can take the little bin that I bought, and that slides right on there. And it's perfect, because now when I'm sitting in my seat, I just pull this out, and I got my glasses, pliers, tape measure, whatever extra lures I have in there, and it just slides right back. And what's nice is, you know, it comes right out when you're traveling, but it just slides right in there. Did it take a little bit to put those metal pieces in? Yeah. I had to cut them down in my shop and get them the exact right size so this doesn't wiggle back and forth too much. And that was a really nice mod there. I bought the cups, put those on there. Added this for my live scope. And then what I didn't like about the F10 was they had those little scoop things that the end of your rod goes into as rod holders. But if you've got lures on the end of your rod, and it just didn't work like I wanted it to work. So what I did is I saw this on a different kayak. I put these two plastic pieces on here. I screwed them right in. And how I did those is I took, where is this piece? This is, I just happen to have extra different containers like this that came inside of a little tool case. And I cut these out of that tool case. It has the bend in it automatically, you know, when you cut it on the edges. So it had the automatic bend in there already, and I cut both of those out of there. And why those are so great is I can take, even if it has a, grab my fishing poles here, even if it has a bobber on the end, this is so nice, because now you just slide this underneath that and lay it down in your kayak. And this is not coming out because of these. And you don't have to try and stick it down to this little, whatever they call that, the rod tip holder on the front. They just slide right in there. And of course, when you want to grab it, it just comes right out. And I'll do that with the other rod too that has the lure on the end. This one here, when I want to set it down, just goes right underneath the that little piece of plastic and sits right down in your kayak. So these are really nice. I like them a lot better than the rod tip holders. They keep everything in place. The lure on the end can be hanging down, or you don't have to worry about trying to fit the lure inside that little rod tip holder, or letting the line out a little bit and putting your rod tip in the rod tip holder, and then the lure is going who knows where. So that's the other mod. Let's see. From here I've got the lighting. I put lighting here on the front. I put a light underneath the seat. So I've got the light underneath the seat, and that lights up the entire bottom when I'm fishing at night. It's got an off and on switch here because I don't always need it. And that runs, drill the hole here and put it through the hull. And then it runs to the front where I'll have the battery. Okay, this is the battery that I bought. I did quite a bit of research trying to find a inexpensive, good battery, especially after buying a $900 Dakota a couple years ago. Now they have batteries out there that are just so much less expensive. And this is a High Sincere 12.8 100 amp hours. And I've got this side here hooked up for the lighting. And then I've got this side here hooked up that connects to the trolling motor on front. I've got the Autobot trolling motor on the front, and I'll show you that in a little bit. Let me get that battery inside the kayak because I keep it right in here. Okay, here's the battery inside the compartment. And I've got, let me go around to the other side. Here's the cable or the cord going through the hull here. That goes all the way back to the lighting on the seat. And we'll plug that in, and then we'll plug in the motor too. And I've got the 50 amp trip here, and I put it in a plastic box. It is waterproof, the trip trip box here, but I didn't want any of the other wires to hit the exposed metal connections on there, so I enclosed it in this Tupperware dish and I cut it out so I could get to the trip switch here. Okay, so I have everything plugged in. I ran the power cord from the auto boat down into the little well here. I did cut out a little groove here for it to go down to the battery. And this just shuts right on the cord. Got my lights hooked up there. And this light here is on a switch. I'll turn that on. I want to be able to turn that off and on. And then I've got the Autobot, which for any of those who are going to put a front-mounted motor on their kayak, I bought this piece of thick plastic, black plastic, online, 12 inches by 12 inches, and I cut it to the shape that I wanted, screwed it all onto the front, bought this plate, mounting plate online. I screwed that all in. I've got this here that I put that in here just in case the motor were to come off. That's not going to go anywhere. And then what I also did is I hooked up a pulley system to be able to pull the trolling motor up when I'm coming into shore or if I'm going into a really shallow area. And you can see how I can get this online too. I'll give you the link to this. This is the only one that really worked for me. It pulls up really easily. What I did is they had the bolts already through here, but I had to go to the hardware store and replace them with longer bolts so I could put on these locking nuts on here. And you can see you got the pan head here. And that pan head is important because that allows this shaft to be able to swing up without hitting the bolts that are in here. And I'll show you just how well this thing works. I've got the pulley here. I put a little eye hook there for this pulley. That pulley comes down to here. And then that pulley comes down to here. And then, of course, this goes all the way to where my seat is, where I can pull this whole thing and pull it up. Let me get that set up and I'll show you. Now, when I first wanted to set this up, to be able to raise the motor, I was going to have it where it lifted up and then it laid down flat, which is what a trolling motor does. But it was just too difficult, too much weight. So I thought of just pulling it straight up. The only problem is when you pull it straight up, it's going to hit the bottom of this keel here and not go up any further. But without meaning to, what happened was, since this pulley system is cantilevered onto the side of the motor, when you start pulling this motor up, the shaft automatically turns and clears this side of the kayak, so the motor actually and the propeller actually goes all the way up beyond the bottom of the boat and clears it. And I'll show you that in a second too. Okay, I'm going to pull the cord for the pulley system that pulls up the motor to kind of see what happens here. It kind of turns to the right a little bit and then completely clears the bottom of the boat, like so. I just came to the front of the kayak here so you can see, because the pulley system is on one side of the shaft, it automatically turns that shaft and allows the entire motor to clear the boat entirely, so it can go all the way up as far as you need it to. And then I'll show you the cord that runs from the pulley system to that pulley to that pulley. And I have it going back here by the seat. And then I have a cam lock right here that once you get it up to where you want it to go, this just put it in here and it locks it down so it doesn't drop back down again. And of course, to put it back down, just let it go and it goes right back down. I have a ring on the end of the cord here, and sometimes I'll just stick it right, where did I put this? Oh, right on this little nut on my seat. That worked out perfectly. You can put it wherever you want. You can just lay it down in the boat if you want to. I also added this kayak, or this paddle holder. I didn't like this one too much. This one's so much quicker, and I can either hold it down permanently with this strap, or I can just quickly go like this with what they have provided already with the F10. So I put that on there also. And I might as well show you this too, although this is a whole different video. And this is my Garmin LiveScope, which I put inside of this case. That's like I said, a whole nother video as far as a mod goes, but this opens up like so. And my LiveScope is in here. And that's powered with the DeWalt batteries, and those slide right in here. There's one that goes here, one that goes here. We'll take those out for now. But I've got that all set up inside this box. I use it for ice fishing too. There's a fan for in the summertime to keep it cool in there. I've got a voltage regulator and a voltage cutoff, because once you take those DeWalt batteries out of the tool, the actual cutoff to keep the battery from dwindling down to where it's no good is actually in the tool itself, or in the drill, or whatever you're using it for. So once you put it in here, you have to add a voltage, not only a regulator, but a voltage cutoff, so it doesn't drop below a certain amount of volts and ruin your battery. Then of course that goes back up here again, closed. That sits in it, and in the Unlimited, or in the F10, that sits in there really nicely. I put the plastic, almost, I think I made it out of a cutting board on the bottom. That sits in there really nicely. I put a little raised portion on the top to have it angled up towards me. Then of course the transducer gets mounted right to the side. It works perfectly. And there's still plenty of room in the front to work with what you want to work with. And that's about it for the mods. I'll have the links below to the stuff I bought here if anyone is interested. Thanks for watching.